Hello, my friends. My name is Sensei Alexey Kunin, and this is my life journey. This is the end of July, and summer slowly going to the end. I took a little break from my lectures and video recording just to enjoy the nice warm summer, to spend some time at my garden where I planted a lot of fruit trees, a lot of vegetables. So I was enjoying peace and quiet. And now I decided it's time to move on with my lectures and talks and talk about what I do best, teaching, talking about my passion of teaching martial arts and Eastern healing arts like Tai Chi, Qigong, energy work, Reiki. So because I do a lot of energy work, I do meditation, Tai Chi, but my also specialty is martial arts, realistic martial arts. And so I teach traditional Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. And so, after a short break, I was looking at other schools of martial arts online, what they do, what they teach, and I decided today to give a little talk about, to make it a little bit more clear what do I think of other styles of martial arts. And I don't want to say that one style is better than the other style. It's how we look at reality and how we interpret what's real and it's what not. Well, first of all, I got, again, a lot of inquiries saying, what language do you speak? My home language is Russian, so I speak my home language. At home I speak Russian, but I live in the United States for a long time. I've been living in the United States for over 47 years, and I've been teaching traditional Japanese Jiu-Jitsu for over 47 years. So I have a lot of background in martial arts and a lot of background in combat and military applications of martial arts in a real combat environment. And I'm a realist, but at the same time I keep my philosophy and philosophical principles. I teach philosophical principles when I teach Jiu-Jitsu, but true internal spiritual things, spirituality is internal, so I don't want to share what I believe, because everybody has a right to believe whatever they want to believe. You cannot tell people you have to believe in certain things, in certain religion. It will be not right. Each person has to choose their own path, travel that path, and become a good spiritual person, but follow their own path. So I'm not gonna say what you should do and should not when it comes to religion, and at the same time, I should not talk about what path you choose when you practice your martial arts. But you can practice whatever you like, but there are certain limitations by calling your style a combat or martial art that has the name martial arts implies military arts. So if you're practicing a form of Aikido, you could classify it as a martial art, but in reality, Aikido was not designed from the beginning as a martial art. It was more as a spiritual art. So same thing, there's a lot of forms in karate, and there are some forms even in Jiu-Jitsu that don't look like a realistic practical applications. I saw a lot of instructors, especially European instructors, over the years, because I did a lot of travel. I did over those many years that I practice and teach. I give lectures in many countries in Europe, in Asia, in Africa. So I travel a lot and I observe how other people teach certain styles of martial arts. And especially in Europe, I'd spend a lot of time in Europe traveling and teaching in many countries. So without criticizing certain instructors, I still would like to come back to the idea of realism. Realism and combat of how you apply your style of martial arts in real combat. Because the whole point of martial arts, it's not just a self-defense, but it's a military art applying, how do I apply in a hand-to-hand combat in a realistic environment when you have to fight, and you have to believe in your techniques, knowing that those techniques will work. What if they're not gonna work? So it's kind of tricky. So I observe over the years, especially many European teachers that teach, let's say, jiu-jitsu. And there is a sports jiu-jitsu, there is a traditional jiu-jitsu, and there is a combat application jiu-jitsu. If you teach traditional Japanese jiu-jitsu, it should be practical and realistic. Because the whole point was applying jiu-jitsu in combat. When you use weapons or when you lose weapons, you have to use hand-to-hand combat. So in the ancient times, that would be jiu-jitsu in ancient Japan. But what I look at the modern instructors from European countries, they teach, I wouldn't call that pure jiu-jitsu. They think they teach traditional jiu-jitsu, but it loses practical application. The techniques they show, it's more like a folk dancing movements, more for exhibition, demonstration, but not for combat applications. Forgive me, but it's true. You know, I'm not gonna lie that a lot of teachers have no idea or think that they teach jiu-jitsu techniques, but the techniques are so watered down, so dense like movements that in real combat it's gonna be laughable. You cannot use those techniques in combat because somebody can get hurt, and the people who practice those techniques believing that they learn from the sensei practical martial arts, and when they meet somebody in the street and somebody in the street just hits them over the head many times, and the technique's not gonna work. So we have to kind of distinguish the difference between certain traditions, the way of doing techniques, and was realistic. Yes, jiu-jitsu is traditional, but let's not go over and make it more like a fluid demonstration, folk movement like a dance. Then it will lose that practical application in combat. So again, when you teach martial arts, that means you always have to remember you're teaching military arts. If you do a demonstration and you change certain techniques to look good to the audience, you have to mention, you have to be honest with yourself and the people around you, saying, this is not realistic techniques, this is techniques designed for demonstration purposes, not for combat. Because when you do the combat application techniques, they're not going to be as beautiful what you do demonstration. They're not going to be so flashy. They're not going to flow like a dance. They're going to be very short, to the point. Should be 1, 2, 3. The fight is over. If the fight lasts more than 20 seconds, it's time to run because you didn't accomplish anything and your techniques didn't work because 15-20 seconds passing, you're still fighting, your opponent is still standing, you didn't do any damage, you didn't do any control. Well, guess what? Your techniques are not working. So you have to be realistic. So you have to know that the techniques will work. And when you teach your techniques to your students in your dojo, always make sure that you're testing those techniques. Are they working or not? When somebody applying resistance, are you being a realist or are you lying to yourself as well? You have to remember that not just teaching correctly, proper movement, balance, coordination, putting the things together like throwing and kicking, punching, so everything is flowing together like a clock, but the technique have to work. This is very important. Technique have to work with resistance. If the person is not resisting you and you're doing the techniques and they do a beautiful jump and fall, it looks good, but why did they fall? Did you put them in pain? Did you throw them? Or are they just trying to be nice and go with the technique? That means either you're lying to yourself or you're lying to your students or you're lying to the art that you're learning. The art has to be realistic and techniques has to be applicable to realistic combat applications. So today kind of talk and lecture is on realism. Make sure the techniques are working. Make sure when you're practicing techniques in your dojo, you test them regularly with different speed, test, strength, see the techniques, how they work if the person is resisting and fighting you. So this is the best way to test them, through resistance and different levels of force of resistance, see how the technique gonna work. In a safe environment, of course, because if you're gonna go too much resistance or full contact, then somebody gonna get hurt. So it has to be a good balance between realism, combat, and practical application, and training as well for safety. So again, my name is Sensei Alexey Kunin, and I'm back again. I'm gonna give short lectures and videos about traditional Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, about my life experience in martial arts, and of course in Eastern healing arts, because I love my Eastern healing arts. I love when I teach Tai Chi and Qigong, and when it comes to healing, I love to share the healing aspect and spiritual aspect of my life. This is my dojo, KATABAMI Ju-Jitsu Dojo in Omaha, Nebraska, United States. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me, write me, email me. I have a YouTube channel, I have a website, I have a TikTok, Facebook. So contact me if you have any questions. I'll talk to you later. Bye bye. Let's keep it real. Let's keep martial arts pure and real.